Hello everyone. In this video tutorial we are going to talk about numbers and their classification. In how many broad ways we can classify numbers? There are several types of numbers, but as far as classification is concerned, there are two broad categories of numbers. One is real numbers and the other one is imaginary numbers. As the name suggests, real numbers are real, and the reason for which they are called real numbers is that these numbers can be plotted on a number line. Number line is a line where distances from a given point represent numbers. So 1 would be 1 unit from a fixed point called origin or 0. Similarly 2 would be 2 units from that point. Minus 1 would be 1 unit on the opposite side, and so on. So any number which can be plotted on number line are real numbers, and numbers which cannot be plotted on number line are imaginary numbers. There is another definition which says that if square of a number results in non-negative number, it's a real number. Otherwise, it's an imaginary number. Forget about imaginary number for the time being. That is not the scope of this tutorial. Let's talk about real numbers. In how many ways we can classify real numbers? So real numbers can again be classified into two broad categories: rational and irrational numbers. What is the basic distinction between rational and irrational numbers? Rational numbers are those numbers which can be represented in the form of p by q, where p and q both are integers and q should not be equal to 0. If it cannot be represented in the form of p by q, then it's an irrational number. So numbers like root 7, cube root of 30, fourth root of 80, all these numbers are irrational numbers. Pi is an irrational number. Otherwise, all the other numbers like 22 by 7, minus 3 by 841, all these numbers are rational numbers because they can be represented in the form of p by q. Even numbers which are not given or not written in the form of fraction but is given in the form of decimal places can be rational or irrational. And the best way to find that is to see whether the decimal portion of a number is recurring or not. So for example, if there is a number 8.212121 and it continues, then it's a rational number, because this number 8.212121 continuing can be represented in the form of p by q. If a number is there in which the decimal form of the number is 6.238, 6.238 and then it stops, so that means the number is terminating after decimal. This is also a rational number. But if a number in its decimal form neither terminates nor recurs, then it's an irrational number. Bear this in mind. In how many ways can we classify rational numbers? Friends, rational numbers can be classified in two broad categories again. They are integers and fractions. Integers are those rational numbers in which the denominator is 1, and fractions are those rational numbers in which the denominator is other than 1, and obviously it should not be 0. So numbers like 81 by 17 is a fraction, and numbers like 81 by 3 is an integer, because 81 by 3 in its minimum form, in its basic form, is actually 27, which is an integer. Integers can be further classified in three types: negative, positive, and the neutral integer 0. So negative integers are on the left hand side of number line -1 to -infinity, and positive integers on the right hand side of number line of 0, that is +1 to +infinity. Now if we talk about further classification, we can go on. So let's talk about classifying all positive numbers. Positive numbers together, that is numbers starting from 1 to +infinity. All positive numbers together, they are termed as natural numbers. all non-negative numbers begin from 0. 0, 1, 2, 3 up to plus infinity. This entire set collectively is called whole number. So if we classify whole numbers from 0 to infinity, plus infinity, we can classify them in two categories again, even and odd. Even numbers are numbers which can be divided by 2 and there would be no remainder, and odd numbers are numbers which when divided by 2 leaves a remainder of 1. So all the numbers like 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 and so on are even numbers, and numbers like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 are odd numbers. Natural numbers plus 1 to plus infinity can be classified in three categories: prime, composite and 1. Remember friends, 1 is neither prime nor composite. But what are prime numbers in the first place? Prime numbers are those numbers which have only two divisors, two factors. One which is a universal factor and itself. So numbers like 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 101, all these numbers are prime numbers because they can be divided either by 1 or by themselves. All the other numbers except these prime and 1 are composite numbers. So composite numbers will have at least one more factor other than 1 and itself. So the first composite number is, you guessed it right, 4, which have factors of 1, 2 and 4. In this tutorial, we are going to only talk about up to this point. In next tutorial, we will see what are the different properties of numbers.